present reality is going to be played. There are 5 things, 5 trends, 5 themes in the current reality that I'd like to share with you that I've seen, which I think impact our business today and impact our business going forward tomorrow. The first theme is, the first current reality is the value equation. If you really want to have economic results, margins and market share, the only way to get those, almost invariably, it cuts across all industries, the only way to get that is through customer satisfaction. And the only way to get customer satisfaction is through associate or employee productivity and satisfaction. So therefore, if you really want to have economic results, margins and market share, the best way to achieve those economic results is through focusing on how do we create the conditions where employees feel productive and satisfied. Now notice I put productivity before satisfaction, because 80 years of academic research have failed to find any significant relationship between satisfaction and productivity. Satisfied workers are not more productive. Contented cows do not give more or better milk. The opposite is true, however. The more productive people are, the more satisfied they are. So therefore, the key to satisfaction is productivity. Now, what is productivity? Productivity is not working harder. It's not doing more parts, not making more sales calls. What productivity is, basically, is the feeling, and that's a critical word, the feeling that I made a difference, the feeling I did the right stuff, backed by the reality of feedback from the customer that I really did. So if we really want to generate margins and market share in the long term, the only way to get that is to build a situation where the employees feel that they did the right thing and know they did because they have feedback coming from customers. That's the first current reality. The second current reality flows from the first, and that is that if we really want to do that, what you do is focus everyone, and the operative word here is everyone, on creating customer success. Focus everyone on the business of every engineer, every machine operator, every secretary, on creating customer success. Now, customer success goes beyond customer satisfaction. It goes beyond this thing called customer delight. Customer success really talks to the issue of how can I help you as my customer be successful? And the best way you can do that is through forming a partnership with that customer, a win-win partnership where you work as hard for the customer's success as you work for your own success. What that means is, to make this partnership work, you must first understand what the goals of your customer are. And you must then understand how you can help that customer or those customers achieve their goals. This means that we need to focus everyone on discovering what customers really want, what customers' goals are, and then working to contribute to help make those goals be reality. Now, every self-respecting consultant has got a 2x2 chart. Every college professor has a 2x2 chart. Well, to prove that I'm a self-respecting college professor, I'd like to show you my 2x2 chart. What I really said in this chart is that there are 2 basic important variables. The first variable is the impact on customer success. And the second variable is the profitability of the activity in which you engage, which helps you to impact customer success. Now, the truth of the matter is that when you go back and analyze what creates customer success and how your activities impact your customer success, you will find, because I have found this in my organization and other organizations with which I've done this work, that most activities fall in that lower DDD box, where they have low impact on customer success and low profitability. Now, when that's the case, that is DDD. This is a typical American kind of thing. So what it says is DDD really stands for deep doo-doo. Activities that fall where you have low profitability and low impact on customer success, activities like that you want to get rid of as soon as possible, because they are going to smell up the place if you're not careful. There are some other activities in which you engage that have low impact on customer success but are very profitable for you to do. Now, those activities you want a PhD. Now, we all know what PhD means in the academic world, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What PhD means in this setting is the P is for pray. You want to pray a lot that your customer doesn't find out how little impact these activities have on his or her success. Secondly, you want to harvest the heck out of this activity, maximize the cash flow, And then third, the D stands for you want to divest this activity as soon as possible to the first fool who will come along and offer you a reasonable price based upon current cash flows. Because you absolutely know that activities in this quadrant, once the customer discovers how little impact they have on their success, these activities the prices of these activities will fall like a stone, and you'll all be killed by the shattering glass. There are some other activities that have high impact on customer success, but because they are high-cost activities for you, they actually have very low profitability. Those activities you want to re-engineer to lower cost. That's what RELC stands for. You want to re-engineer those activities to lower cost. That's where you want to put your engineering activities, because that's where you get the largest return. The last quadrant, and that's the quadrant towards which you want to migrate all of your activities, where you have high impact on customer success and high profitability, that's where you can RII, another typical Americanism, you can rake it in. Take it to the bank, because that's the whole purpose of this impact model. To make this impact model really work for you, you need to ask yourself two very important questions. And not only yourself, but every single person in your organization. You first need to ask, how does your customer define winning? Whether your customer is a retail customer walking through the door of a department store, or your customer is an industrial consumer of a machine tool, ask yourself, how does the customer define winning in their market? What is winning for your customer from your customer's perspective? That is a very significant issue, because you must understand how your customer sees winning. And this is a very interesting and active dialogue in which you can engage all the members of your organization in thinking about what winning really means for their customers. Because then the second payoff question is, what do we do which contributes most to our customer success? When you get done doing this analysis, what you will find is that most of your activities do not contribute very much to customer success. And if that's the case, that tells you exactly where there are activities you can prune out because they do not contribute, they are not valuable issues. The second critical going forward reality is you need to focus everyone on doing those things that contribute most to the success of their customers as defined by their customers. Because those issues determine the must-be's. That is what we as an organization must be in order to succeed in this world. That's the beginning point for this whole journey. The third critical going forward reality, which I think shapes where we have to go and how we're going to go, is we need to learn how to manage horizontally. Now, most of us have learned very well how to manage hierarchically, manage from the top down, give orders, make decisions. In fact, I was real good at doing that. In fact, I was so good at doing that, I even wrote a whole book about how to delegate better, delegate more effectively. All of which meant that I retained the responsibility, and I parceled out pieces so other people did a little piece, but I still retained, playing head buffalo, I still retained all of the responsibility. About 10 years ago, along came Tom Peters and said, Belasco, that's wrong. You have to learn how to manage not from the top down, but have to learn how to manage from the bottom up. To put those people who are responsible for the customer, who are in contact with the customer on the top, turn the pyramid upside down, and you all at the top of the organization, you have to support all those others. I said, Tom, that is a great idea. I'm going to do that. And I did. At least I tried to. And I tried. And I tried. And I tried. And that failed also. Because you see, customers don't understand about vertical organizations. Both of those, managed from the top down or the bottom up, are both flawed. Because they both assume a position which is different than the reality. You see, customers flow through an organization horizontally. They place an order, it goes to order entry, it goes into purchasing, goes to manufacturing. They don't care where the order is, they're only concerned about the order. The order flows horizontally. When this horizontal flow of the work in an organization encounters the vertical obstacles of the communication system and the vertical obstacles of the authority system, what happens? The horizontal work smacks right into the vertical barrier, and you get conflict. And that conflict slows the process down. That conflict builds in cost. That conflict causes you to add layers to resolve the conflict. We have to learn how to do is not to impose this hierarchical, vertical order on the horizontal work, but learn how to manage horizontally. And if you're going to do that, the only way to manage is to manage from the customer in. We have to learn how to build a business where the customer is the boss and the boss isn't the boss. To do that, we need to have 6 critical systems in place in order to make this happen. The first critical system is we need to have a set of performance agreements with customers. Performance agreements, both long-term and short-term, that are for both a group of people, let's say everyone in a production team, and for each individual person on the production team, and to have those agreements that are then interlocked with both internal and external partners. So if you need information, you need to be interlocked with your information systems partners. If you need to have suppliers, or you need to have supplies, you need to be interlocked with your external suppliers. Every single person in the organization needs to have an agreement with their customers about what they are going to deliver. And that agreement is a living document. So it changes ongoing. It may be for a week. It may be for a month. But it certainly would never be for a year, because work takes place in increments that are much smaller than just a year. The second basic agreement the second basic system you need to have is a real-time, real data information system. Excuse me, which provides feedback from customers directly to performers. That means if you and I are interlinked, and I am your supplier and you are my customer, then therefore I need to know from you on a real-time, real data basis how well I'm doing in meeting your expectations and your demands. And that information should come directly from you to me and shouldn't pass through somebody else like a supervisor or the accounting department. The second part to this is you also need to have a transparent financial reporting system. A system so that I, on the line, as an example, know everything I need to know in order to do my job, in order to run my little business. It is almost as if we want to put everyone in the business of businessing. We want to put every single individual to have their information so that they can make decisions about costs, make decisions about prices. And it's this fundamental reorganization of where the information flows go that I think has the most dramatic impact on how an organization functions. With the wonders of computerization and electronic mail, virtually everyone is in a position to know everything. I know in my organization that's true. I can take you to large organizations all across this world, and I know that's also true. So that we need to, secondly, have a real-time, real data information system that provides transparent financial data so that people throughout the organization structure can make real-time financial decisions based upon the best data available. The third critical system we must have in order to manage horizontally from the customer in is to put together a reward system, both monetary and non-monetary, which is designed by the performers. After all, who is the expert on what motivates you? You are, obviously. So therefore, if we wanted to put together a system that helped you be motivated, who should we ask? We should obviously ask you, because you're the most likely person to know. Is that how most reward systems get put together? Absolutely not. Most reward systems are put together by some expert who sits in an office far away from where the work is done. Now, within this guidelines, however, within this reward system which is designed by the performers, you want to base that upon financial reality. Remember the last slide where everyone has access to what the financial data is. So based upon that financial data, for instance, wouldn't everyone like to make $1 million? Of course. Well, let's talk about what we need to do in this business so we can set the business up so all of us can earn $1 million. And that's based upon going back and looking at the financial realities of what this business is about. Then you need to have some organizational guidelines. As an example, in my organization, we have a very rich bonus plan. But the bonus plan is only paid, and all 1,400 of us have agreed upon this, the bonus plan is only paid to those individuals who delight their customers. It's only paid to those individuals who do perfect work. It's only paid to those individuals who complete their learning plan. It's only paid to those individuals who have absolutely guaranteed delivered what they said they were going to deliver to their customers. So that we have set up a set of organizational gates and guidelines, by the way, which 100% of the people in the last 2 years have all qualified and passed through, in order to qualify for the bonus. We have based our reward system based upon the guidelines that all of us agree upon. Third critical system is the reward system, which must be designed by the performers based upon financial reality with a set of organizational gates and guidelines upon which all of us agree. The fourth critical system is that there needs to be a selection system where the people who are going to work on a team need to be chosen by the co-workers and the customers of that team. And I've seen this work in retail establishments, in supermarket establishments, as well as in internal manufacturing activities. The selection is done by the people who know the job best and who are going to work with that individual and need to work with that individual to make the outcome for everyone be successful. The fifth critical system is we must have a performance appraisal system, which once again involves co-workers and customers. There needs to be a system whereby the performance of individuals is appraised not by a boss, but is appraised by the people who work most closely and are most dependent upon that individual, namely the customers and the co-workers. And the last critical system that we need in order to put in place in order to manage horizontally is the personal career development system, where each and every person must have a way to learn, and that learning activity must be approved by, developed in conjunction with, the co-workers and the customers. These 6 systems all help us make the customer the boss rather than the boss being the boss. And we need to do that if we are going to manage horizontally so we can focus everyone in the organization on creating successful customers. And that's essential because it's having people know that they're doing the right thing for their customers is the key to long-term organizational success given the value equation. Now, the fourth going forward reality is that we're now in a situation where systems need to replace structure and hierarchy. We don't need the levels of management that we currently have. What we need are extensive coaching, and we need more coaches. We need more leaders, but we need less hierarchy. So the 2 systems we'll talk about in a little bit are the interlock performance agreement system, which is a methodology for how to make all of this work together, and then a scoreboarding system, which is a way to keep track of, are we really doing the important things that need to be done? All of this only happens with the 5th going forward reality, and that is that we need to generate focus in our organization, focus on customers, rather than focus on making internal plans or beating internal budgets. We need to have focus on the things that create customer success, not on the things that we like to do or the things that we thought were the right things to do. And then we need the discipline to follow through to make certain that these things happen. Discipline is a terrible word. Discipline really means doing the things we hate to do, but know we have to do. For instance, how many of you flossed your teeth last night? The chances are fewer than 10% of you did. And yet the dentist will tell you that if you don't floss your teeth, you're going to lose them. Take 10 years off the life of your teeth. Yet the truth of the matter is that fewer than 10% of the population actually flosses. Who's got the 15 minutes to spend every night to do that? Who has the discipline to spend the 15 minutes every night to do that? Let me ask another question, maybe a little more personal even. How many of us in this room, how many of us all across who are watching today are at least 10 pounds overweight? Now, don't answer that question because it'd be embarrassing. The truth of the matter is better than 75% of people are 10 pounds overweight. Yeah, we absolutely know what it takes to not be overweight. We absolutely know. What it takes is push-ups. Push-ups. 3 push-ups in particular. Push-up from breakfast. And push-up from lunch. And push-up from dinner and all those big rich desserts. We know what it takes. But we don't have the discipline to follow through and do the uncomfortable things that we know are the right things to do. What's true in our personal lives, ladies and gentlemen, is also true in our business lives. We know what it takes to produce superior quality. We know what it takes to produce blow-em-away service. We know what it takes to make high margins. It's no secret. We just don't have the discipline to do it on a regular, consistent basis. To really succeed, based upon these 5 current realities, to really succeed will require us to think in ways that we have not been trained to think. Us to think in ways that require us to step outside of our current comfort zone. us to think in ways that are new and innovative, that are truly out of the box. If we are really going to be successful in the latter half of this 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, we must learn how to manage in a very different way. Because the truth of the matter is buffaloes don't fly. The truth of the matter is we need to transform ourselves into dependent buffaloes, from dependent buffaloes into interdependent, soaring to excellence geese. And that is the challenge that confronts us.
We now
Start with the second and most suited question and answer session. The first one comes through us by fax through Turkey. Is there a clearly identifiable set of contingent factors, the balance of which indicates the priority of preferred change mechanisms, i.e., by changing structure, changing attitudes, changing the external interface, changing internal processes, etc., when changing organizations to meet various goals, i.e., more growth rate, maximum profit, maximizing market share, etc.? If so, what is it, and how do they interact?
Well, in truth, this is a very complex question, and it demands a very complex answer. Let me, in brief, outline four critical contingency factors, if you want to call them that, or four critical factors. The first is there absolutely needs to be a sense of urgency. People throughout the organization need to feel a need to change, and that needs to be a personal need to change. Secondly, there needs to be a clear vision, a vision of where the organization is going and what the organization must do in order to get and keep customers. The third thing which is necessary is there must be an enabling context. You must have the right systems and structures in place to make certain that people get the message that satisfying customers is important. And then the fourth contingency, if you like, is you must have the right tools. You must have the right strategies and the right training in place to make all the rest of this work. Now, the answer is a very brief answer. If the questioner would like to have additional information, I'd be happy to send him additional information. If he would fax us his name and address, be happy to talk with him offline.
Thank you, Dr. Velasco. We have another question from Turkey, and this is the question. This comes from the Minister of Education of North Cyprus. What happens if the leader buffalo dies?
What happens if the buffalo leader dies? So do most of the rest of the herd, unfortunately. When the buffalo leader passes away, the buffalo stand around and wait. If the buffalo leader has not put in place a succession plan and has not put in place other mechanisms where the herd knows where to go, what happens is the buffalo stand around and get slaughtered. It's a very dangerous position to be in, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Doctor. Let's see if there's a new call by fax from Turkey. It appears that there isn't one. Hasn't arrived. We have one from Mexico, from the Autonomous University of Baja California, and it's asked by Armando, Osorio. What is your experience within your organization when only part of the organization wants to change?
Well, in most organizations, the interesting thing is that anyone can start a revolution. Anyone is able to begin by beginning. I guess maybe that's a tautology, but you begin with empowerment with yourself. You empower yourself to take the actions that your customers need. You empower yourself to set performance agreements with your customers and with your internal people as well. And you get all of the people who work in your part of the organization do the same thing. It's been my experience that very few organizational change efforts involve an entire organization. They typically begin in one place and then spread, sort of like an epidemic. So the challenge is, how do you begin? You begin by beginning. You begin by setting performance agreements with customers, getting feedback from customers, and then getting everyone else involved in that very same process.
Gracias, doctor Velasco. La siguiente pregunta viene de Cuernavaca.
The next question comes from Cuernavaca, from the Electrical University. This is the question.
Sí, lo oímos. Atención, Cuernavaca.
Cuernavaca, we're listening.
Dificultades de comunicación.
We're having communication difficulties. We have another question.
Este planteamiento de organización.
How can you implement this organization within the bureaucracy in a state?
Well, in the next segment, we'll talk about the interlock performance agreement process, and this is the process that we are using to change the federal bureaucracy in the United States, which is a 3 million person organization. The process begins by establishing performance agreements between the leader, the president perhaps, or the secretary, and then the people who report to that leader, and then cascading those agreements with increasing specificity down until every single person in the organization has that kind of activity, so that it is the setting of performance agreements and then the scoreboarding process, which we'll learn about also in the second session, in the next segment, which will talk about how we keep score. Customer service measures, associate satisfaction measures, upward feedback, and then program effectiveness measures, all of which are important ways to implement change in a state bureaucracy. I have seen a number of examples where change has worked effectively in state activities.
Thank you. The next question comes from La Paz, Baja California. From the Autonomous University of Baja California. We're listening.
¿Cómo vencer la oposición al cambio en los ejecutivos de mandos medios por temor a la pérdida
de change and empowerment? That's my question.
I think that's very typical, actually, because many executives would like to empower their people. Many executives are theoretically in favor of these kinds of changes, but frankly don't know how to do it. Frankly don't know the right way to empower people. So that what needs to be is we need to create a model within an organization. The way you do this is you begin. You begin by beginning. You begin by empowering yourself to take actions that satisfy customers. You begin by establishing performance agreements with your customers that involve other members of the organization. You begin by beginning. Remember the words of Teddy Roosevelt. Do what you can with what you have where you are. Remember the words of Nike. Just do it. I think that's the best answer to this question.
Gracias, doctor. A continuación, el doctor Jim Velasco iniciará su
charla. Dr. Velasco will initiate his lecture, and we can receive more questions during the next session.
As we move forward into tomorrow, to take advantage of, capitalize upon these 5 trends in the world today, we need to define our job as leaders very differently. In 1978, I wrote a book, a management textbook called Management Today. And in that book, I said that the job of the manager was to plan, to organize, to command, to coordinate, and control. You probably have heard those words before. You probably read them in most textbooks. And most importantly of all, you probably have seen them practiced on a day-in and day-out basis in your own organization. I wrote those words in 1978 because I believed them. I believed that they were true. I also practiced them in my organization. I now understand that the job of the leader going forward is very different than it was then. The job of the leader going forward really has 5 major dimensions. The first major dimension is the task of the leader is to transfer ownership. It's to be certain that those who do the work own the responsibility for doing it correctly, rather than doing it himself or herself. And what this says is you don't delegate work. So this is not the art of delegation. In fact, the word delegate is very interesting, because the word delegate means to act in the name of somebody else. So when you delegate work to somebody else, they act in your name. Now, in truth, the only name you're likely to defend most is your own name. So delegation is when you act in somebody else's name. Ownership is when you act in your own name. And that fundamental difference is the difference between night and day. The difference between acting in your name or acting in someone else's name. And it is the leader's responsibility to build a